Vijay, good afternoon. What's the sense that you get in the markets? Where do you think the correction can be, and will it be a buying opportunity?
Well, definitely, I think that after a run-up of about 5-6 sessions, the kind of correction we are seeing, which is 36-40 points odd on the Nifty, I don't think that it's something to be worried about or worrisome. This correction could probably drag down the markets to maybe say 8280, at the most 8250 levels, until unless some major negative news flow happens. So I don't see any major correction as of now beyond this point. And of course, these are buying opportunities to get into stocks which have been, beaten down, and the kind of companies which have been getting orders. For example, HCC got an order. We see an uptick in all the infrastructure related stocks today, housing stocks, which have been beaten down. So these are opportunities to get into quality stocks and ride the tide. So we are almost sitting on the monsoon session, and some breakthroughs are expected during this session. And I'm sure that government is working full time to get through the GST bill. And if this happens, I think that this could be a major trigger for the market apart from the monsoons. So there is good news around, and market has already discounted all the bad news related to Brexit. The US interest rates seemingly do not are not going to affect for the next maybe a quarter or so. So I think that the kind of inflows which are there from FIIs and the domestic funds, they are propelling the market. Plus, we are also sitting on quarterly results. So if at all we see an uptick there is a decent upside on the in the quarterly results, which seemingly is after looking at the advanced tax numbers. So I think that the markets can push 8500 mark. So I'm fairly cautiously bullish on the market as of now. No bearish sentiment, I suppose so.
Right. As far as fund flow picture is concerned, it's not particularly that great or not that amazing as one would have thought with this up move. Does that worry you, or flows can follow later as well? Vijay, any view on the fund flows that we have seen recently? Not very big buying that we have seen of late, but still markets have done well.
Well, if you look at the fund flows, specifically I'm happy with the kind of fund flows which have happened by the domestic mutual funds and financial institutions. Looking at that and looking at the picture 2-3 years back, I think that this is a very serious move on the domestic fund flow side. FIIs have also started buying, so it's not like they are selling heavily and cashing out their positions. It's not like that. Another beautiful thing which is happening with Indian markets since the last 1 year, I would say, is the interest which has come back in the IPO market. Almost all the IPOs which have hit the market, they have been more or less good. And we've seen times 2-3 years back when many of the IPOs were getting cancelled because they were not getting as many subscriptions. So all the IPOs getting heavily subscribed. IPOs like Mahanagar Gas, the FIIs were not even able to buy into the IPO because it was subscribed fully. So people were buying from the secondary open market. So I think that these are good signs for any market. So the interest which is coming back from the retail side, from the domestic institution side, from the FII side, and of course where will the world go to invest? Because in the emerging markets, I think India is definitely at a sweet spot, and I think that if we are able to manage the inflation well, if crude doesn't play a spoil sport, if the quarterly numbers are good, if the government is able to pep up the GDP growth rate, I think that there is a lot of good news in store for the Indian markets. And if at all something untoward doesn't happen, I think that slowly and steadily markets will grow.
Right. How do you look into the Ultratech Jaiprakash Associate deal? Will it be positive for the cement sector, especially Ultratech?
Well, I think that Ultratech would expand capacities. Ultratech is already a fantastic company, and if this is happening, it's going to be good for JP, which is already reeling under a lot of pressure of debt. So if they are able to hive off their debt and resurrect their company in some way, it would be good for JP Associates. Ultratech, yes, excess capacities. would always add on to the overall size of the company and the confidence the market has on the company. But again, this kind of cash flow, it would take some time. Some time for the company to for its balance sheet to settle down, because it's a heavy cash outflow. So again, but with a long term perspective, yes, it is good for the cement industry, activity happening, and if we see action around the infrastructure space, which is quite evident all around, and the government's plans around smart cities, again around the infrastructure development. They're talking about the kind of airports which are going to come, the smaller cities which are going to be connected to the larger cities, and the roads which are going to reach each and every village of the country. Of course, we are also talking about the power sector in tandem. So a lot of work on the infrastructure side, and these are the major names, which are going to execute this, the stocks which have been beaten down. So I think that there is some good news in store. And these companies, if they get orders and get their money in time from the government, they would be able to hive off their debts and be in a very comfortable situation than they were earlier.
Right. Would you buy something like a Jaiprakash Associate?
No, I won't. I would buy an HCC. I would prefer an HCC rather than a JP Associate, because the worries are far from over. Because the kind of debt the company has, so I think that it's fairly uncomfortable as of now.
Right. As far as HCC is concerned, there you are not worried about the debt and the execution risk?
Well, HCC has done some marquee projects. If you look at the overall performance of HCC over the years, I agree that debt has been a major thorn in the flesh for all the infrastructure companies and the housing related companies. But the level of comfort is also around the corporate governance, the kind of projects the company has executed in the past. JP vis-a-vis HCC is a very recent name. HCC is a very old company. Mr. Gulab Chand is a very old hand in the infrastructure space. So I think that looking at the management and looking at the kind of order flow they have and the kind of plans the government has, and again the track record of executing large projects which generally people do not get into, I think that HCC should do well in the coming years.
Right. And how would you look at the debt repayment of HCC? Is that something, how would you look at the operational cash flow growing and then probably the repayment of that debt, which will then lead to further flows coming into equity shareholders like you?
Well, this is what I said. If they getting the order is not the end of the road. Getting the payment is. So if you get into the government circles, and if Mr. Modi and his team is able to set this tone right with all the companies, so I think that PPP model will actually flow, get a lot of boost. Because the problem was that money was not coming back to the companies which have executed orders. So there's a natural delay which was there from all the government sector, and we know the kind of corruption issues which were there. But if the government is able to obliterate the corruption issues and the delay piece, so I think that slowly and steadily these companies, with the kind of order flow and the plans which the government has, and these companies, if they're able to execute, I think that debt repayment would be slow, but I think it would be steady and good for the companies in the coming years. But again, it is a cautious approach. Companies which are heavily leveraged and they are not able to keep their head up above the water, it would be very difficult in the coming times with kind of banking norms which we have seen. The banks have been fairly strong on the debt recovery side. So it's going to be an uphill task for the companies. But again, companies were able to manage it well and they're able to get their recoveries on time. I think that there's a lot of good news for them in store.
How would you look at Reliance Infrastructure? Is that something that you would want to buy into? Is that something that you feel that it's a mix of defense plus the other infrastructure as well? So it's a better name?
Well, yes. Lately the stock has started looking up, and the kind of order flow the company has, I believe that the balance sheet is improving. I won't say it has improved, but it is in the process of improving. Plus, they've been able to secure orders, which is good. And Reliance Infrastructure also has the track record of executing large projects. So I think that it's in a better place than a lot of infrastructure companies. So yes, definitely it can be bought into for a short to medium term, with a short to medium term perspective for an up move.
And say, if we are talking about these companies recovering their money, something like a REC PFC, which has had some issues, do you think that these companies are now looking attractive? They are trading below their book.
Look at a situation where each and every village in the country, and each and every house in the country needs to be given electricity. Which company will execute? So these are the companies which already have the inroads into the deepest part of the country, and they have that capacity and capability to execute these things. So I think that if that's what I said, the government has to set their house in order. They have to ensure that the companies which are executing these orders get money on time. So this is again an issue. I'm not saying that we are far from it, or this issue is solved. But again, if companies start getting money on their balance sheet, it would be easier and faster for them to execute orders. So REC definitely, with a long-term perspective, I'm fairly bullish on the stock. Apart from this, companies like PFC, Power Trading Corporation, these companies also should do good.
As far as the recent move is concerned, we've seen names like GMR, GVK. Some of these names also do well. Are you a fan of any of these airport companies? Do you think that's something where one should look at?
Well, if you ask me from the core of my heart, I'm not a fan of any of the infrastructure companies because of the debt issues. But again, I'm seeing a ray of hope for these companies now. GMR was trying very hard to hive off some of their, partly or fully their airport assets. And if they're able to raise good capital and they're able to hive off their debt due to that, I think that this is a sweet deal for them. And they would be able to stand on their feet and do much better, bigger projects which they've already done. So we should also commend these companies that 10 years ago nobody had even dreamt of having an international airport like we have in Mumbai or Delhi today. So these things have happened right in front of our eyes. So these we have to give them the glory for this. And of course, if at all money starts flowing into their balance sheets, they're able to hive off their assets, going to get good value. Maybe foreign investment comes, they're able to bring down their debt to comfortable levels. Then of course, sky is the limit. There are smaller towns which need to be connected, to the mainstream towns. So I think that there's a lot of good news in store, provided this entire cycle works and gets completed. If the cycle breaks anywhere, the money doesn't come, the government doesn't pay, the FDI doesn't happen, then of course we are again in a fix, and we are talking in thin air. So there is a ray of hope definitely for all the infrastructure companies, airport related companies, and of course that the cycle of payments has to happen. So I think if this starts happening and the government is able to set it right, I'm sure that these companies will resurrect themselves in the coming 5 to 10 years.
Right. As far as something like Ashok Leyland is concerned, which has done very well, but last 2-3 months numbers were not that great. Would you want to stay away from that?
Well, if you say temporarily, yes, but in the long term, definitely no. Because if you talk about the LCV, HCV segment in the country, how many names are there? Tata Motors and Ashok Leyland are some of the major names. Force Motors has tried to dabble into, Asia Motor Works. There are very few names. And the most credible name which comes to the mind is Ashok Leyland. Of course, there are no major fireworks in this counter. But again, it's a very stable company. The revenues have been by far good. Their distribution channels are good. The respect for the product is again humongous among the end users. They also have a finance company which finances their trucks. So back to back integration is good. Nationwide network is there. So I think that these are imperatives for any company to be successful in any market, and these ingredients are there in Ashok Leyland. So maybe there's a temporary blip, but again if you get Ashok Leyland around 80-85, I think that it's a great buy, and one can invest into this stock for a maybe 120 to 125 rupees targets, which is a serious upside. But again, there are no major fireworks in this counter. This counter moves slowly, but again, deep value in the stock and the company. The corporate governance has been impeccable over the years. So I think that it's a great company to invest in if somebody gets it around 80-85.
Right. As far as oil marketing companies are concerned, we've seen the first full year results, and now probably things are looking as if these numbers would go ahead and come true, assuming of course that inventory gains remain stable. Do you think that that's a space that you would want to buy despite the recent good run up?
Well, definitely. These companies have had a dream run in the last 6 months. So look at, companies like BPCL, HPCL, IOC, all these companies have garnered huge profits. The kind of sourcing they have done, the long-term contracts they have done with the oil producing countries. I think that this is going to pan out in the next few quarters as well. So this profitability should keep on showing, because the retail prices never come down to that extent. So then the government has done a smart job, we should all agree. And all the OMCs which were reeling under the huge under recoveries, are now sitting on profits. So these profits would definitely be visible, I think, in the next few quarters. Again, provided if the crude doesn't play a spoil sport, which seemingly doesn't seem to happen, because it has already shown a decent run up. So I don't see crude running past 60 in the recent times. So again, I see good results for these companies, and companies can show a major upside of maybe around 10 to 15% in the coming quarters. So fairly bullish on OMCs as well.
Right, Vijay, thank you so much for taking out time for us. Hope you have a great day.